Hello, my name is Peter Stewart, and this is Live Stream Insiders on Blab. Thank you very much indeed for watching, or maybe you're just listening. Either which way, thank you very much indeed for joining us on what is our 36th episode. It hardly seems possible, does it? But 36 episodes to bring you the very latest news and interviews and some tech tips and developments and new apps to do with live streaming. My name is Peter Stewart. I'm in London this afternoon, 7 o'clock UK time, and my background is in professional broadcasting for a well-known British broadcasting organisation, and presentation and production skills is what I've written about quite extensively, and also been around the world and training people on those kinds of skills for both radio and TV. My partner in crime, my co-host is Krishna Day. Hi, Krishna.
Hi, and I teach digital communications. I'm particularly interested in live video and, of course, visual comms. So we're looking forward to sharing with you lots of great news and things that you might be interested in if you're interested in the content of social marketing, particularly social video, live streaming, live video, whatever you like to call it.
This is our weekly program. It is just 30 minutes long. It's because we value your time, we value your minutes, we value your megs. However you're watching us, you know that you only have to put aside 30 minutes to come right up to date with the very latest news. Not much around from Facebook Live this week, but we have several stories about Periscope and some updates there. We've also got a few top tips to bring you from our experience in streaming live video, and also a couple of kind of case studies which we thought would be interesting to bring you as well from the New York Times. And also someone who potentially infringed copyright while they were live streaming. It's that story again, isn't it? But we shall talk about that in a little while. First of all, as I say, some big stories about Periscope this week, and the big news has been that they've taken, Krishna, some big steps towards blocking people, and they seem to be the first kind of social media company that may have found a bit of a wiggle room about how to sort this out, and people who troll, people who send abusive messages online.
Absolutely. So this is a little bit different way of actually managing feedback, negative feedback from people. And this has been a long-standing issue, generally on social media, but specifically on Periscope. Lots of people get negative comments there. And I'm not just talking about people disliking things, but you can get really horrific trolling over on that platform, and in fact many other platforms on live streaming, but a different way that they've done it. So now what happens, and if you actually update your app, or you go into the app, you'll probably see a little notification that comes up. Certainly I've seen that. So that during a broadcast, what can happen is you could always block somebody. So if you're watching somebody in a live stream, you could always block them. But now what in fact you're able to do is that they're going to sample a number of people. So let's say I don't like a comment in Peter's live stream on Periscope. Well, that will then be sampled with some of the rest of his audience to say, do they agree? Do they dislike it as well? And in fact, what will happen is that if others think it's inappropriate, there'll be a 60-second ban. So that person won't be able to post further comments. And then what will happen is that if it happens again, if somebody actually is reported again, then they will be banned from the rest of the stream. So it doesn't mean that they're actually kicked out by the audience, but actually it means that they won't be able to comment. And you might see that if people have built some really strong communities on Periscope, they've got people who watch out for their content. And so it's really interesting they've gone down the route of looking to the community. And one of the things that they actually comment in an article that we'll refer to in our show notes later on, which is about the fact that it takes the onus of moderating comments from the broadcasters, because there's so many people who are using Periscope, not necessarily as an organization, but as individuals. And so it's really tough to manage walking around, sharing content, watching the comments, responding to the comments, being responsive there, and blocking people. So I think that was really interesting. Now, what it doesn't stop though, and we've mentioned this at the beginning, that we'll be talking about issues of, let's say, illegal issues that are going on. it actually, there will be still broadcasts that are flagged up, and those will be actually also reviewed by the Twitter safety team. So we've talked about this over many episodes in terms of on Live Stream Insiders. Lots of times we've talked about inappropriate content and also things that are really not good things to have been live streamed. And so the moderation by the community is only about the comments. Twitter's safety team will still be looking at things that are considered inappropriate. But one of the things that also they go on and talk about in this article, which was on Fast Company, and the commentary is from one of the developers who's been involved in Periscope right from the beginning, saying ultimately the goal is to make it as hard as possible to get gratification from being abusive. And you've probably seen that on lots of different platforms, that particularly in terms of live video platforms, where people just put in the same comments and same abusive comments or even abusive emojis. And actually then that, makes it not a great place for other people to be part of. And if you as the host of it don't actually seem to be doing something about it, then that doesn't say anything about, that gives some questions. So I think it's a really interesting approach, but I'm interested in terms of what do you think, Peter? Do you think that approach to asking the community is one that I've found it hard to see issues there, so I haven't managed to experiment with it live.
So I was on Periscope yesterday afternoon in couch mode because I wanted to, I'm putting together a presentation on live streaming, and I just wanted to see some of the things that are out there and try and build up a few kind of case studies. And there were 3 or 4 instances that I came across of young girls streaming. One of them was in a pool in a bikini in the United States. There were a couple of girls, I think, in Leeds, and there was another girl by herself in Luton. And all of these were on Periscope last night, and they all had the various open bobs kind of comments, and there were so many of them. I mean, obviously these aren't the kind of scopes that I would normally be watching at all, so I was really surprised that the amount. Well, hold on, if all of those people, and I would say that 75% of the comments that those 3 sets of young women, because there were 2 in one of those streams, so in total 4 young women, I would say 75% of the total comments were essentially offensive, were of the open bobs kind of content. Well, if you're asking 5 people who are watching to be judging everyone else, and those 5 people are also making those kind of comments, then they're going to let everyone else go, aren't they? So there, it doesn't actually work, I would suggest. But we'll watch this space and see what actually happens. In fact, there's been an interview published today with the developer of Periscope, which has been published in the British press, in the Observer newspaper, and Krishna's got more about that in a few moments' time. First of all, another big change to Periscope. We've been talking about it for a while. It's been one of my little hobby horses, and that has been potentially the death of Periscope, because it should be integrated actually in the app. I've been saying this for months and months and months. Facebook Live got it off immediately. They've built it inside Periscope. They've built it inside Facebook, whereas also Periscope has been almost kind of standalone from Twitter, and that's always been a bit of a problem for them. It's meant that people have had to download that other app. Well, they've kind of shuffled closer to much better integration over the last 7 days. It's come to Android. It's slowly being rolled out over iOS. But when you go to compose a new tweet in Twitter, not only will you be able to see the option of uploading or taking a still picture or uploading a video that you've taken up to 30 seconds maximum length, but also the opportunity for you to be able to go live from your Twitter page immediately with a new icon. Well, obviously that is really good. That stands for better integration. However, it does mean that you've still got to download the Periscope app so you can start live streaming. So that could actually be, leading to more complications, I would have thought, with people going, oh yeah, we'll go live. Oh, hold on, I'm kind of put off by that. I've got to download something. I want something to happen now. I've got to go somewhere. I've got to download. I've got to set up. I've got to, no, I can't be bothered. So if and when the integration becomes seamless, it may have already put people off who may think that they've still got to download something. Just saying. But that may mean that more people try it, but I don't know. If you're going to do it properly, do it properly, and I really don't think that they have. Certainly, it's put it kind of up front and centre in people's line of sight that they have got the ability to go live. I'm not sure that actually still forcing them to download the Periscope app, well, frankly, should just be called Twitter Live, frankly, from day one. Really don't know what they're playing at, but there you go.
Well, the one thing you just mentioned there is about an article that was in The Observer. Now, I have to admit, I didn't read it. This is thanks to Peter and his curation. So just so you know what happens in terms of our show here is that we actually plan it with news that we come up against during the course of the week. So this is one that, Peter, you might want to add it on to at the end of me covering it. But it was really interesting in terms of in The Observer, it's a UK newspaper, and they actually were asking some questions around actually the development of Periscope, as Peter said, from the developer there. And so he lets me take you through a few of the questions. So one of the things is about one way Facebook is competing is about paying for content. Again, something we've talked about previously. Is that something that you're looking at for Periscope? So here's the answer. As at today, which is the 5th of June, 2016, who knows what the future will be? But the answer was about they're proud to have actually built something that people are using because they get value out of it, not because they're being paid to use it. And in fact, this is interesting, the language here. I think that for Facebook, it's an effective and aggressive way to play catch up for sure. So clearly putting a stake in the ground and saying, Periscope was here first before Facebook Live. But philosophically, we want to make sure that we're always building something that people are inherently wanting to use without using economics as a crutch. That said, it's important to make sure that we incentivize creators. And that we always see Twitter experimenting with this. And so they've got a whole division called Niche that works with creators to help them pair them with brands who want to sponsor content and help them make a living. I didn't even know that existed. I don't know about you, Peter. There's lots of influencer agencies that are being developed. There's lots of PR agencies who are working in this sphere about connecting brands and influencers. I didn't realize that Twitter was already doing that. But that's an interesting thing to watch out for. So incentivization, yeah, there's probably some that's going to be coming. Second question that was covered is about Facebook's pushing 360 video and virtual reality. With Periscope sitting underneath Twitter, what's your ambitions in terms of for VR and 360? Again, something we cover very frequently here on Livestream Insiders. And they said that because they separate everything, they're a separate app in the App Store and also in Google Play. So they actually have a separate team with a separate office. So they're able to do lots of things. And they said their focus is helping them see the world in real time. And then actually that means that, basically that allows them to be able to say, we want to see the world in real time in different formats. Well, we've already seen that integration with GoPro. So, it's interesting that they're actually saying there are separate apps, no different to Facebook in some regards, although Facebook Live is integrated into the main Facebook, as Peter was talking about before. And then a question about what things do they watch in terms of at this point in time. And I thought it was interesting because, as Peter was said, I actually went to the map even on Facebook Live recently, and I went onto Periscope recently just to see how many people were watching, and I looked at both global maps. And there's lots of live streams that are going on with like 1, 2, 0, 5, 10 viewers. And they were saying, I see my parents going on walks. They've got 5 people watching the broadcast, but it's really nice and an intimate experience. So, it doesn't always mean that you have to have hundreds of thousands of people watching or even millions of watching your replay, as we've just seen recently with the NASA and Facebook Live with Mark Zuckerberg. We've obviously got a lot of coverage in terms of that. Actually, that intimacy, that's one of the really nice things. And of course, the fact that they're doing a private live stream there, you have the ability to do a private live stream, that's great as well. And I did think, given the fact that we've had the BBC here before, and we've got lots of friends who work for the BBC, they actually saw on the other side of the spectrum, they liked watching the BBC World Service Outside Source. And I have to admit, that's one I subscribe to. So if you like to see what the BBC are up to on Periscope, do check out at least that as one of their live streams.
15 minutes down, 15 minutes to go. We'll tell you in a short while how the New York Times is using live streaming and what their recommendations are. And also we've got some good stream, bad stream news to bring you, and also a couple of tips we'll squeeze in the next 15 minutes as well. First of all, let me tell you about a new iPhone battery case as part of tech news this week. Now, we don't usually do this kind of peripheral add-ons for cases and lenses and things like that. We don't usually. We have kind of touched on it before, but this one is a little bit different. So it's an iPhone battery case with wireless charging. It's from the company that's really big in cases and batteries, those cases that actually fit over your iPhone, but an integrated battery inside as well. It's the Mophie range, and their Juice Pack battery. I had one of those before for a previous iPhone, and you know what? Inevitably, it's now just sitting in a drawer, and they don't come cheap. And in fact, this isn't going to come cheap either. I'll tell you about it in a few moments' time. But actually, what happens is you recharge your iPhone while it sits magnetically, sticks onto a stand on a kind of vertical surface. So it's a bit like a stand that you might have, or a cradle in the car for your sat nav or something like that. And the new Juice Packs from Mophie are for 6 and 6Ss and 6 Pluses and 6S Pluses, and also for the Samsung Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge, so not exclusively for the iPhones. They're calling them the Charge Force, which is a good name, desk stand and so on. And essentially they're going to be costing, let's have a little look down here because I've mentioned about 4 or 5 different ones, but $99 for the 6S, $129 for the 6 Plus, 6S Plus. So they're not going to come cheap, but however, if you are someone that's using live streaming a lot out in the field, you will know from experience that it is a data suck and a battery suck as well. And if you're a professional, so if you're a mobile journalist, for example, maybe you perhaps will be able to persuade your company to be able to get you one of these extra juice packs. But a little bit of tech for you.
So one of the things that we like to do here on Livestream Insiders is that we like to make sure that we cover case studies that you could learn from. And this is a great case study that was published just a couple of weeks ago, and it's actually from the New York Times. I'm going to encourage you to make sure you've got a pen, paper, or your phone notepad open, because there's some useful tips here to help us all in terms of us live streamers. So this is actually a case study from the New York Times, because there are many publishers that are using Facebook Live. And in fact, that's a way for them to reach and build an audience. So in this particular case, they've actually been revisiting what they've learned from their first month in terms of using Facebook Live. And in that month, can you guess how many live streams they produced? 60. So that's, on average, a couple of days. Now, I haven't gone back and evaluated what days of the week they were doing them on, or whether they did multiple ones on certain days, but I think that's just interesting. What's the kind of content that they've been sharing? Well, they've been live streaming weddings. So their wedding section of the New York Times obviously took a lead in that one. They did a walking tour in Havana. And they also did some interviews as well, of course, with celebrities such as Caitlyn Jenner. And so in terms of the things that they covered, and this is in an article by Digiday, there were 4 things that I think are of interest for us. Firstly, they actually don't call it video. It's not video. They're calling it interactive journalism. And I think that's the key thing, the fact that it's interactive. Live interactive journalism, because of the two-way communication with the Times journalists and the Facebook commenters. So that's one of the things that they've actually learned. They realize it's very different from them just publishing one of their previous videos that they would have done so. And the video is often featured in the on-screen reporter answering questions. So often they're actually responding to questions. Now, they're not the only publisher who's been doing a great job of of this. I've also seen the Wall Street Journal very regularly publishing, because I'm following them and I see them in my Facebook newsfeed. And so it might be worthwhile you having a look at how they're responding to those comments. Second one, in terms of the format and what they learned from even looking at things like how BuzzFeed and that exploding watermelon worked. And it's about the element of suspense. So I wonder how we could actually bring in more suspense into our show, Peter. But I thought it was really interesting in terms of the element of suspense, and it might be sometimes on a serious matter. They talked about, they actually also had a situation where somebody was turning themselves into the police for harassment charges. Therefore, there's a different element of the suspense versus actually it being the exploding watermelon we saw from BuzzFeed. But I thought it was interesting. The third tip that they gave was that videos don't have to be tied to stories in the newspaper. Well, this is interesting for you if actually you're a brand. So actually you don't have to immediately tie your content to on your Facebook Live or any other live stream directly back immediately to the business. You could be peripheral stories. Maybe that's things that you're involved in, that you're sponsored in. If you're involved in an organization, let's say you've got to think about compliance and what you can live stream, then that might be a way for you to do it, because let's say if you're in financially regulated organization, there's some things you perhaps can't or don't want to talk to. So this is how they've done it. So they've done it by doing things like a Take Me There series. So actually that's been around other articles related to that event. They've also done a new series called The Whistleblowers, where they're actually talking to somebody, asking questions about people who've got some prominence, notoriety for exposing things that have gone wrong. So I think that's quite interesting, because obviously it gives you a platform to talk about things that you don't have to put into the main publication. And the fourth and final thing is, don't just focus on the numbers. That's something we've already talked about here on the show today. And in fact, look at other things. Look at actually the comments, look at the sentiment in terms of actually how people are engaging with it. So it's not always about having, the huge numbers of views. For me, I'd also say it's about, have you got the right people watching? So actually your target audience, are they watching you as well? Really interesting article. I hope that gives you some ideas about how you could think about your content for your live streams.
And particularly interesting, despite you saying don't concentrate on the numbers, they've got 6 full-time members of staff developing videos for Facebook Live, and they've done 90 in the past month. Wow. So there's some big numbers there. Okay, in a few moments' time, because we've just got 6 minutes left, we'll talk about our top tips. This time round, we're both going to be talking about lighting, about positioning yourself for the best light. So we've got a couple of tips on that in a few moments' time. First of all, let me just quickly tell you about a live stream that went badly wrong. A live stream on Facebook, because a student has been arrested in Chicago for going into a cinema or a movie theatre and actually streaming. Recording and streaming live on Facebook the film that was going on. And was anyone catching him locally? No. It was actually a company that spotted him, an anti-piracy team that spotted him nowhere near Chicago, but 8,000 miles away in India, who saw, and they made a few phone calls, and they were able to get a message to through to the police in Chicago, who went around there and was able to stop him. And of course, all the evidence was there on this guy's mobile phone. So we've said it before, that is of any place, of virtually any place where you're not going to be allowed to stream, and where you're continually reminded about turning phones off, about piracy, going back to the old days of VHS and Betamax cassettes. And in the UK, it was Simon Bates, wasn't it, at the front of all of those VHSs saying, don't pirate these videos and DVDs. And also in the cinemas or in the movie theatres as well, we're continually reminded not to be streaming, not to be recording, whether it be sound or stills or video or live video now. And it's been said time and time again he was caught red-handed with the content. So no arrest was made. However, a police report has been filed. So presumably that may be flagged up on this chap's record if he ever gets in trouble again. But another comment, another reminder, if it was necessary, about stealing other people's copyrighted works. Okay, we're nearly down. We've got, 4 minutes to go. So a little bit more than that. So I thought it was time maybe we could pop in a couple of top tips this week. And we thought that this week we would talk about lights. So, Krishna, what are your top tips on lighting for live streaming?
Okay, so for lighting tips, I want to give you one for indoors and one for outdoors. You know, many people don't have much of a budget when they're getting started with terms of live streaming. So the best light you can have is actually from a window. Now, of course, unless it's dark. So actually what I've got here in the office is I've got a couple of lights that are above me. But if I was, let's say I was out and about and I was in, let's say, a venue or a hotel room or something, then I actually go. But what I would do is I wouldn't have my back to the window. I'd turn my face into the window because actually I want that light on me. And so if I have my back to it, then it's just going to blow out the camera. So that's the first thing I would do. And a little tip around that, you can always do a little test yourself. So if you're on Periscope or if you're on Facebook, you can do a private live stream just to yourself and actually to see what it looks like. And if I'm outside, one of the things that people often find a struggle with is if it's sunny outside, you know, it's not always easy for us to be able to grab some shade. And probably you're the best at this, Peter, because of the great live streams that you do out with Periscope, out and about in terms of the wonderful countryside that you're in. But one of the things is that sometimes it's difficult to actually read the screen and therefore see the comments. So one of the things you might think about doing is actually how could you just shade that? And it might be just like a little bit of card that you could actually just, you know, kind of blue tack onto the top of your phone just to give you a little bit of shadow. Of course, other people, not me, I have to say, might wear a baseball cap. And so that in itself helps them. So again, just watch yourself in terms of whether you're facing into the sun and actually what that means. Then you're squinting and that makes it challenging. So that's just a quick couple of tips without spending any money.
Okay, and if you're wondering why I haven't been doing many periscopes recently, will all be revealed in the next few months because I should be doing a few more after August and into the autumn here in the UK. So my setup here is that actually I'm in my home office and I have my main window there. It's still pretty bright outside, being summer, and just after 7:30 here in the UK. So it's a really fantastic summer's day. So I've got light coming into me from there, and I've also got another kind of studio light up there and another one up there as well. So I've got light coming from 3 different sources. However, if I wanted to light up my face and I was just using a phone, then of course you can get several cases which you can slip your phone in, and they actually have the lights all the way around. So it's a bit like, you know, a kind of makeup mirror or something like that, where you've got the lights all the way around. So a Lumi case, a case made by the company Lumi, Lumee, is something which is what I've got. Advantages, disadvantages to those. Advantage is that the lights isn't just on and off. You can actually grade and fade the light, which is really useful. Unfortunately, it's only for that front-facing camera. It's not for the back camera. If you're wanting to show something else, then you're out of luck to a certain extent because you don't have the light facing outwards, facing the other way. However, of course, you can get mini lights, LED lights, rechargeable. You can then attach on some kind of rack or gimbal system, and then you can have a light pointing whichever way you want to. And I've got one of those, and I should be showing you one of those, courtesy of the company I work for, in the not too distant future. Okay, that about wraps things up for me, Peter Stewart, live from London, and Krishna Day, live from Dublin. Krishna, any parting words?
Just remember, same time, same place in terms of tuning in. Next time we'll be live streaming at 7 p.m. UK, Ireland, and UK and Irish time. That will be at blab.im/LS Insiders, 12th of June, 2016.